every single building has a roof. And we try to make sure we're not only just working on the roof, but we're also working on that mechanic and that foreman and that person that's coming out to that house to know they're learning valuable skills. They're serving everybody else in their community. And when they stand back and look at the work they've done something really worthwhile. They can see the work they accomplished that day, and it's going to stand, for the test against Mother Nature for many, many, many years to come.
Hey, welcome listeners. Today I have the distinct honor and privilege of having a great friend on the show, Brian Chalsma. He is one of the founders and the owner of the roofing company here in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area and throughout other areas of Virginia as well. The business is thriving. He's been in business for 25 years and he's got a lot of wisdom to share about owning real estate as an entrepreneur and what that means for your business. So Brian, welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah. So, Brian, we've known each other for quite some time, but our audience doesn't know you. So, give a little history of your background and then how you got in the roofing business, which I think is a really funny story, and then talk about kind of where you guys are today.
Well, we grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin, so I had been involved in a lot of different business ventures. The Army brought me to the East Coast. Met my wonderful wife over 33 years ago, and we started many different business ideas, and they all didn't go super well. And eventually it led me into the roofing industry, and we had a company called Chalsma Contracting, and we were working with a roofing contractor to run leads and develop business development and things like that. And situations happened, and anyways, that venture did not go well. There was a government agency with 3 letters that showed up and decided that perhaps that owner needed to go to a very secure location for a certain amount of time. So we ended up starting the roofing company in 1998.
Wow. So quite the road to get there. Tried a number of businesses, which seems to be the common theme for most successful entrepreneurs, right? Most people don't just dream up this idea and I'm going to go into business and 2 years later they're on the cover of Forbes, right?
It seems very rare that would happen.
Yeah. Maybe in the .com age, there are a few people out there that have been in the right place at the right time, but for the rest of us mere mortals, not so much.
That's true.
Yeah. So you have a thriving roofing enterprise here in the area. I know you guys focus on residential, commercial. Also, you have a slate division. You've got a few other companies as well. But just so the listeners know, I mean, your company is one of the top companies in the area. And I think we were talking before, there are technically over 3,000 roofing companies in the general area that would be classified as your competition.
That's what we're told by the ABC Supply, Beacon, Superior. The wholesale distributors are saying there's probably over 3,000 contractors throughout Hampton Roads. But in that, there's probably less than a couple of hundred that actually are real focused roofing companies. And we'll say there's very few that are real professional roofing companies that focus on commercial and residential and a lot of different roofing systems. We do metal, we'll do shingles, asphalt shingles, low slope, PVC, mod bits. We'll do, like you said, slate. So a lot of our work, we have 4 crews that just do historical work. So we focus on historical homes right after the Civil War up until about 1930. And a lot of those have Buckingham slate or Vermont slate roofs that we help to maintain and extend the life expectancy.
Oh, nice. Do you do anything with these new solar shingles that I've heard a little bit about?
That's something that we've talked about. We've been interested, and we are in talks with a couple of different manufacturers. There's a lot of other parts and pieces to work out to do solar correctly with the state and with the requirements with Dominion Power, such as that.
Gotcha. Okay, but you guys are pretty sophisticated in all the different offerings that you have, and you developed that over 25 years. So, Tell me about this. So you guys, 25 years in business, at some point in this process, you had achieved a certain amount of success, cash flow, growth, and you felt like you guys had a business that had some legs, some staying power to it, right? It was going to grow and you're going to make presence in the community. And a lot of the people that listen to the show, a lot of business owners are, they're 2, 3, 4 years into a business, they're renting their space still, but they're to the point where now that like, okay, I made it over the hump. I think this is a long-term thing for me. At what point did you guys decide that you would be interested in buying or building your own building, and what were some of the reasons behind that?
Yeah, so we, started, I think how as most people would, we started with a rental space. It was actually in York County off Route 17. And eventually that space grew from an office space to then we had some storage spaces that we were renting because it was not an office storage in one location. So after a time, probably would be 1998 up until 2005, so 7 years, we had found in an industrial park in Hampton, Virginia, they had some incentives and it was a good location and we were able to get a piece of land and build a building. And we built a building with the intention of having 5 units in the building and our company would occupy one and then have cash flow from the other 4 locations.
Yeah. So what was that process like?
I mean, it's like everything else we just talked about, Paul. I'd love to be on your show and tell everybody about how great everything went, but it took longer to build and it was more stressful and there's more hoops to jump through when you're building a building. And then we moved in February of 2006 and everything was going great until we got to 2008. And all of a sudden we had this new building and it's not 100% occupied. And we went through many years thinking this was a very, very bad idea because, we have this albatross or this millstone around our neck. And anyways, it was a real stressful time.
The idea that you were going to rent out a pretty significant percentage of that building, right? So you were really
Correct.
forward thinking.
We were, and we didn't know that the, you know, great downturn or recession or whatever we're going to still call it from 2008 was going to happen.
Right.
And then you fast forward another 10 years, and by the time we got to about 2018, we'd been pretty consistent at having everything rented out. And now, the businesses are really, it's good to have a building. And we have a roofing school that we started many years ago. It gives us a chance to bring clients in if we're working with a church, for example, and their building committee wants to see that we have a training facility where we can do slate roofs and we can do an internal gutter or whatever that roofing system is. A lot of times that's really nice to be able to bring them in, show that. But most importantly is we can take guys from brand new in the industry, or if they've worked at other places and maybe haven't been trained by industry standards, and we can put them on numerous different roofing systems and they can get signed off with technical proficiencies in steep slope roofing, shingles, slate, metal, tile, low slope roofing, PVC, EPDMs, mod bits. And I think our clients really appreciate that. When we send out foremen or our mechanics, they really know what they're doing.
So the building, having the building, so it was a rough patch in the beginning because of the global financial crisis that really hit so many people, so many industries. But it sounds like that your business was still, I mean, obviously your business survived, and it was a hard period for just about every business at that point. But you had enough systems and people and processes and customers to make it through that period. Had you not built a building that was maybe so much larger than your need, it probably would have been a little less, probably would have lost a little less sleep at night at that point. But you guys
Yes.
were looking at the investment and the income opportunity downstream, which ultimately, as you just said, I think fast forward is really starting to pay off. But there was a little period where it was a little touch and go.
There you go. So it's a 20 night, it's almost a 20-year, we'll call it almost a 20-year success story. So you think about by the time we get to 2026, we'll be in the building for 20 years and should be in a really good spot.
Yeah, yeah. Because meanwhile, the building has continued to appreciate in value, right?
Correct.
And you get some tax advantages along the way, defer some income tax with having depreciation and
Yeah.
whatnot.
And I mean, a really good thing that happened. I mean, these last few years before, or was it maybe 2, 3 years ago, when rates were so low, we were able to work with you, Paul, and get it refinanced. And that's helped us a lot there too.
Yeah, and the cash flow. So you're not really in a situation where if you're leasing a building, because particularly your type of space, because you have a flex space, right, with office and warehouse,
We
right?
do. We do.
That is really in high demand right now. And to go out and rent a space like that, if you can even find it, is crazy. And so if you're fortunate enough to be renting a space like that and your lease comes up for renewal, there's a high probability your rents are going to go up significantly.
Very true. And now after being in the building for this long, it would be very difficult for us to move somewhere and be able to rent a space for anywhere close to what we can, staying in our own building. It's much more advantageous.
So not only were you able to refinance when the market improved to reduce that payment versus being at the whim of some other landlord saying, okay, man, the market on rents is going astronomical, so we're going to raise you or force you to move. But you also have your units, I think all your units full or just about full. And
Correct.
so they're paying rent and they're defraying, if not covering the freight on the loan.
Well, that's the goal. They're paying a large portion of the loan.
Yeah. So the win. So the point is, the takeaway here, and I tell people that are interested in this idea all the time, is that it's not a short-term play.
Mm-mm.
I mean, you're going to live. I mean, think about your house. So if you're going to be moving from city to city to city, we have a lot of military in our area. They may be stationed here for 2 or 3 years, and then they could go to San Diego or Alaska or whatnot. It's a tougher sell to this idea to buy a house unless you know the market's going to appreciate. It's much trickier. But if you know you're going to be in an area for your entire career, maybe you work for the government or some civil servant job, or you have a business locally, then it makes sense to own your own home because you can do what you want with it. You've got pride of ownership, you get the tax advantages, and you're building equity as opposed to paying somebody else rent all this time.
One other thing, as a business, we're focused on the leadership development now for the next generation. So if we've been in business now 25 years, we want to focus on what are we going to do for the next 25 years. And having a location like this and servicing throughout Hampton Roads, this allows us now to focus more on that leadership development for this next group of guys that are coming through the company that are going to run the business, hopefully for not just the next generation, but another generation. And if we can use this model to then duplicate in another location, that would be a good thing.
Yeah, and I think you are blessed to have your son-in-law working in the company, correct?
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've got both our son-in-law and our business partners, Greg and Stacy. Greg's son works here. So we've definitely got, and we've got some that are not family that are also part of that leadership development team.
So it's also about the ability to create this permanence and then duplicate the model for generations. And so you're really creating generational business, generational wealth that you can pass to your family. And there are some advantages there also from a tax standpoint, which I won't get into because I'm not a CPA. But what about from a customer standpoint? You did mention the church that you're doing some work with, the higher level commercial type of work. Is it important to them to know that you've got solid and deep roots in the community?
Yeah, a lot of our work, probably over 70% of our work, unfortunately, is going out to jobs where someone's hired a roofing contractor and either they're frustrated with that roofer or they won't come back or they can't come back or they won't fix it. So a lot of, no matter if it's commercial or residential, we're going out there to fix something that somebody maybe already believes it was fixed. But let's stay with your church example. A lot of the different churches, there's multiple people on that board that are all volunteers, but they're getting ready to spend God's money. And everybody in the church wants to second guess sometimes, why did they pick this contractor? How come they're doing this? And that's why coming to the office, getting a chance, the condo boards, we do a lot of condominium, okay, or churches, or just people that own businesses or even homeowners. We've had several homeowners say, I haven't had a good experience in roofing contractors in the past. I moved to the area. I've lived in the area for a long time. I want to do something different this time. And they'll come visit the office, ask a lot of questions. Why do we follow the National Roofing Contractors Association, slate roofing contractors? What are the different specifications that we use in our roofing school?
So it makes an impact with your customers and the stability, and they see what you do. What about your employees, like with your recruiting and team building? I mean, does it help to when you're talking to someone about you're interviewing them basically, and sometimes they're interviewing you too, right, to see if it's a good fit. Hopefully they are, right?
Correct.
For them to see and understand, hey, you guys have a permanence. You've got this building. You've been here. You're not going anywhere. You're committed to the industry. Does that help?
It does. There's been a huge need for people to realize that, college can be great for a lot of people. I personally never didn't finish college, but you know what? You can make a big commitment into our community no matter if you go to college or you don't. And someone that has the ability to work with their hands, that really understands how to get stuff from their head to their hands and can fix things, in our case, roofing. Every single building has a roof. And we try to make sure we're not only just working on the roof, but we're also working on that mechanic and that foreman and that person that's coming out to that house to know they're learning valuable skills. They're serving everybody else in their community. And when they stand back and look at the work they've done something really worthwhile. They can see the work they accomplished that day, and it's going to stand, for the test against Mother Nature for many, many, many years to come.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. So shifting gears a little bit, sort of along that theme, because I think I get a sense of where you're coming from. What motivates Brian? I mean, what do you define as success? Obviously, you built a successful company. You've got great income. You've got your real estate, your equity there. But what drives you? Why do you get out of bed every day?
You want to have some kind of a purpose. And, I tell people this all the time because I do roofing and think about roofing 10, 12 hours a day all the time. Everything in my world comes back to roofing. And as crazy it is, but we're really passionate about figuring out a lot of roofing systems. I'll give you a story just from yesterday. We're working with a historical home in Smithfield. It's one of the mayor's homes. Matter of fact, the lady was the first female mayor of the city of Smithfield. The house was built in the mid 1800s, 1875. So everything in this house has to be done by historical standards. And we've went through a bunch of different things there's a Follansbee tin, and it's difficult to have a coating on Follansbee tin. And we had different manufacturer come out and try to do coatings and try to do testing. And it's not a really big job. And the lady was like, you spend more time on this small job than we can't even get people to show up. And I said, well, I've been accused of being a little fanatical about roofing and doing these things. And to answer your question, Paul, as crazy as it sounds, we just want to do a really good job. We want that roof to stand for the life of expectancy of whatever that roofing system is supposed to last. So if it's really supposed to be a 20-year roof, we want it to last 20 years of, Buckingham slate. For example, we have a church between Gloucester and Matthews that was put on in 1867. So it was put on just a couple years after the Civil War, still has the original Buckingham slate roof. And it's a privilege to be able to really maintain and have that part of history that you and I can go and touch something that's over 150 years old and still performing. So I guess that's what I would say is at least success in roofing and in our business, that's what I focus on.
So solving those problems and helping people get some sense of permanence there, I think, is what you're talking about,
like
right?
That.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned you eat and you sleep and you dream roofing, because I know a lot of the vacations that the Chalsma family happens to take are somewhat related to roofing. Is that not the case?
Yes. Fortunately, my wife has been so appreciative and wonderful. Now, I've been able to talk her into going to a lot of places for roofing, but as our kids were growing up, we went to, quarries in Quebec, and we went to roofing shows and roofing things in Amelia Island, Florida, and Savannah and Charleston. There was a lot of different family trips that we had that centered around a roofing conference. You are 100% accurate.
So the two loves of your life, right? Your family and roofing.
There you
Hopefully
go.
in that order.
Oh yes, definitely families first.
I know. So, well, also your faith. I know you're a very faithful person, and talk about that. How's your faith? As much or as little as you want. How has that impacted not just your family, but your business and in your day to day, the way you approach things?
So we've been involved in a group called C12. It's a Christian CEOs group for a long time, and it really does matter. We lead each one of our company meetings with a prayer. We try to, like I said, when we focus on building that person who's in roofing, and a lot of guys get into roofing, and let's just say they didn't come from a super great background, and maybe they didn't have all these wonderful things, opportunities, and we work on their self-image and things like that, and them knowing that they're really committed to serving people in that community by learning a skill. I mean, they were created, okay, just like everybody else was in the image of God, and we try to tell them, hey, you're not a mistake, okay? You are an absolute, you're supposed to accomplish something with your life. And we really try to work on those guys. And it seems, because we get customers that call up and they'll ask for Adrian, or they ask for Mike, or they have a fan club now of people's roofs that they've worked on. And when they call the office, they're like, I really need him to come out again. He was 3 years ago, but I really want him to come back because I really had a great experience.
No, it's awesome. Well, I mean, you're doing the ultimate work. I mean, a lot of people talk about, ministry is in the church, and it's on Sundays, but really I think the way that most entrepreneurs, whether they're a faithful person or not, I think live by a lot of faith principles, and you realize, hey, you've got to build other people up and help them, and by helping them you help yourself. It's a win-win. And if you're doing it by intentional faith, then there's a deeper meaning there. But I think as entrepreneurs, we live by faith every day. Again, whether we recognize our dependence on God or not, it's there's not a paycheck coming in every Friday, whether you show up or not, right? I mean, we're living days where sometimes it's great, but sometimes like 2008, it's not so great, and that's the kind of thing that gets you through. But the example that you are, to be able to do that with your permanence and your success and your commitment to your customers and your commitment to your employees, is something that they will take away more than anything you say. Just your example.
Yeah,
And
we're excited. We've got a young man that, anyways, just things that have not happened well for him in life, and he could have tons of excuses on why things are not, and he doesn't ever have an excuse. He shows up every day with a great attitude, and he's got this young lady. Him and her are getting married in May, so next month. So we're pretty excited about that. He's been with us about 7-8 years, and it's just neat to see them go through that, even before they're not even 30 years old. And anyways, I'm very excited about that.
no, it's awesome to know you've had lots of influence on that. And what an amazing thing from a permanence and an eternal permanence perspective. That's totally awesome. Well, hey, Brian, back to the concept of buying the building. We're about wrapped up now, but any advice you would give someone who's like you were 4, 5, 6, 7 years into the business, thinking about this idea of buying or building a building? What advice would you give somebody in your shoes, those shoes?
Well, again, it's not going to sell a lot of books, right? But patience. If you think that you're going to be ready to go into a business, sit down, really do a business plan. Draw out what's that building going to be, and how are you going to lay everything out? Why do you need that building? Is it a ego thing, or is it a legitimate tool for your business? And take time to do that and really think about it. Don't rush into it. Look at multiple sites. Think about traffic patterns. We happen to be right next to interstate, so it was easy for us to get up on the interstate and get to each one of the tunnels. We picked that specifically because we service the entire Tidewater area. So we needed something that was going to be close to both of the tunnels. So don't rush into it. Lay it out. Make sure you talk to someone like Paul so you can figure out what are your finances. Are you going to be able to get the loan? Make sure you interview at least one or two builders. In our case, it was a metal building. So we interviewed several guys that were metal building, and go by and talk to people that built buildings. It seems like there's a lot of due diligence and people want to rush into it, but you will thank yourself for doing that due diligence, and you have a lot better chance of it working out better.
Nice, nice. Well said. Well said. Well, Brian, I appreciate you taking some time this morning to jump on the show, man. This is a lot of fun.